And the reason for this is that the owners of these record labels really don't want the artists to meet and exchange their notes. Because I was paid to go on Big Pimp if we could get together and swap notes from learning the game in this way. That relationship didn't exist between us. Furthermore, I don't believe Pimp would have agreed to a Jay-Z verse that was on par with his own. So let's just end this now and break this bread. What happened to Pimp C? On Mr. Carter's birthday, he passed away. Additionally, the Cadillac's license plate read, "Thank you," and Beyoncé just finished her halftime show. Sacrifice. Pimpy was discovered dead a few days prior he called Bun B one last time from a hotel room in Los Angeles. And according to those close to him, he ordered Bun to watch his back. Furthermore, Pimpy never spoke in riddles. If he had an issue with the industry or felt a certain way about you, he expressed it with his chest. He was dangerous because of that. And just prior to his passing, he began speaking in a way that excessively. Every playlist is same across the nation. That wasn't the case in the past. Every city you visited had a different song on the list, so you could take an airplane and travel to other destinations. Everywhere we went, there was a different album, even if it was a local musician who was at the top at the moment. Pimpy then began mentioning names. He was criticizing Jay-Z for reportedly using royalties to play UGK. He began accusing various label execs of being dishonest street rappers and moguls. The gay rapper is someone I am aware of. I am aware of the person who allowed the mod to insert the dildos. Furthermore, I am aware of who did what, where, when, and why. Whoa. Do you have the want to say that now? Proceed. Repeat this. Go ahead and say it if you want to. Repeat this. All of the rappers in the South make me proud. Although I'm happy of everyone in Atlanta who sells albums, not everyone is my friend. Additionally, I dislike every one of your recordings. Now, leave if you wish to disparage man. However, it's your responsibility as a radio station employee to ask me that question. And it's my responsibility as a genuine person to know how to respond. Just when Pimpy was becoming really loud, he vanished. According to the autopsy, he passed away from sleep apnea problems and addiction to codeine. However, that decision doesn't set well with Pimpy's past, his feuds, and that most recent phone call. Pimpy's mother even came out and said her kid was taken out. His mother believes that he was poisoned and that a very dubious and odd person was with him when he passed away. Thus, a real person of interest was present. In that last call, what did Pimp C warn Bun B about? Why did he sense that he was being pursued? What actually transpired in that hotel room was that these two firms stopped all of that when they acquired all of the radio stations, took control of the playlists, and began handcuffing and braceleting the DJs. Thus, you hear the same thing, everywhere you go, playing a record. Pimpy never held back when criticizing the music business, particularly in his final interviews prior to his untimely death in 2007. Pimp C was angry that big labels and executives were taking advantage of and treating Southern artists like himself and Bun B disrespectfully. During one of his last interviews with XXL magazine, Pimpy discussed the corrupt practices of the industry, how those in authority frequently prioritize profit maximization and product control over paying artists fairly, who contributed to the culture's formation. However, DXL attempted to reverse the situation by accusing Pimp C of undermining UGK by being so vocal. He was asked by Double XXL, "Do you ever feel sorry for Bun B since he's in a group with a man like you who is unfiltered and maybe you've been programmed to think I'm bullheaded in his ways?" Pimp C retorted, "I just know what the F is going on. I know who's a gay man's insert slur. I know who's letting them girls F him in the behind with their dildos. I know who really sold dope. I know who didn't. I'm in Houston, and the only guy I see going to the mall alone is Slim Thug. The other guys, when I see them, have security surrounding them. How are you going to be afraid of the community you're supposed to be representing? All those Houston rappers who believe they're celebrities, I suppose." Pimpy also publicly criticized rappers who were fake in their street cred and had no patience for artists who pretended to represent the streets but lacked authenticity. For Pimp, authenticity was everything, and he wasn't shy about it. What, B? There are no stars down here, only stars in the mother effing sky, calling out anyone he believed to be a corporate puppet. And then Pimp C also called out gatekeepers in the East Coast industry who were disparaging Southern rap. Pimpy and later Bun B would discuss how the Southern artist culture and financial success were frequently ignored or marginalized by those in charge of the industry's cash flow. And Bun B saw this as a part of a bigger individuals. You have a lot of movements in the South that were very important to a lot of people, and if certain things had not happened, the people you see on TV today would not be there. For example, a swap house is undoubtedly a perfect example of the pattern of exploitation where Southern rappers made hits and created movements, but rarely received their fair share of respect or money. Despite the success of Big Pimpin', Pimpy, and Bun B were vocal about feeling cheated out of proper credit. Record companies, nominated Luke and the 2 Live Crew, which are obviously the forebears, but you had a slip up and slipped out of that. And you know what I mean? Who did numbers? Pimp went one step further and began criticizing others, including Jay-Z. However, Pimpy's distaste for Jay went beyond money and royalties. He believed that Jay-Z had disrespected cultural icons like Tupac, and that Pac represented authenticity and resistance to corporate vultures. Pimp also believed that Jay's treatment of Pac demonstrated how disconnected Jay-Z had become from the culture. In the background, it was tense, really tense, because Pimpy wasn't the kind to jump on just any record, especially not one that was associated with an artist he didn't respect, and he wasn't feeling Jay's energy from the start. UGK collaborated with Jay on the legendary 2000 hit Big Pimpin', and if you were outside at the time, the song was everywhere. Pimp C's devotion to Pac ran deep in the South, and UGK's former manager claimed that Dame Dash was throwing money at the issue when he offered UG a $1 million check to get Pimp on track. However, Pimp refused, and Taylor claims that when he accepted the offer, Pimp suggested that they give the money to Tupac's mother. Instead, I contacted him straight away because I knew you were at the house, and I said, "Hey, I'm thrilled. $1 million was given to me. It's this. They are fighting. And Rockefeller is the I call Pimp." After I calmed them down, the Pimp locked in and said, "Wait, take a moment, Rock. Isn't that where Jay-Z is?" "Yeah," I said, but I failed to see the link. As I was saying this, he said, tell him to take that check over to Tupac Mama and give it to her for stealing all Tupac." I put him on that Pac boy and he said, "What?" He left on his assignment for me as soon as I told him about Tupac. Jay-Z was already on the line, listening in, and Pimpy was unaware that he had heard everything. That's what he heard him say. Hey. Jay did indeed hear him. He heard him because the Tao had to quickly wipe that troyers up because I was like, I didn't realize he was in the room, and I had to jump up and apologize for this. When I saw Ho there, I thought, oh. I then told him that he needed to come down and visit them, talk to Mama, have lunch or supper with them, sit down, and do it the proper way since that's how pimps did it. If you didn't take a seat and consume, he won't break bread at dinner with his mother, because it was just the way he was brought up. He was a music student. He was a different person. He was familiar with music from the art conservatorium. He had studied from the perspective of an orchestra. His mother had made an investment in his professional life in order to be who he was. Therefore, it was the counterculture of hip-hop and rap discovery down there by the time people saw them. He and Bun resembled a country version of Run DMC. Fantastic artist. The boys of the new ghetto. They seemed to be Jay Prince's new ghetto lads. They were just that. Fortunately, they relocated to Atlanta. Just set the game down, and the rest was history. We were able to get him with Short and Short. Correct. That created a stir because, well, they missed the first 2 Jay-Z albums as a result. And I realized that Pimp and Jazz were fighting the following time. In the end, Pimpy consented to engage in Big Pimping. Let's avoid confusion, though. That was never cool of him and Jay. There was actual tension. Bunny even acknowledged that convincing Pimpy to contemplate the collaboration required some significant reverse psychology. The crazy part comes next. Even after the song altered the game, went platinum, and blew up, it did not impress Pimp, and it wasn't really noteworthy to him. It was merely business. That relationship didn't exist between us. Furthermore, I don't believe Pimp would have agreed to a Jay-Z verse that was on par with his own. Therefore, let's just break this bread and go on. Also, Pimp and Jay didn't actually have a relationship in that sense, to be honest. Although we had a great deal of respect for one another, Hobo and I were always closer. Do you understand what I mean? In the end, I received a feature. Do you understand what I mean? However, it was really simply about how hard we worked to get to where we are now. We are succeeding now because we are just who we have always been. Claimed that we were. Our most well-reviewed record to date is Ride and Dirty. Not a single music video for the Gold album. Do you understand what I mean? At that point, he might decide to discard everything because he wants to give you money to rap a verse on a rhythm you would never use. Do you understand what I mean? I just like reverse psychology like Wick. Because it felt like a lot, and it took a lot to get him to somewhat come around to the concept of being a part of it. Then don't do it. As in, don't even function. Bought it. We will not do that. Just to let you know, you don't want to do it, so you won't do it. Do you understand what I mean? Okay, Pee-wee. However, I'm leaving. However, Big Pimping did not rank among his top 10 UGK songs, as if he had no desire to perform another one, and it grows darker still. Right, Jagger asserted that Jay-Z did more than merely attempt to ruin Pimpy's career. She thinks he might have contributed to Pimp's premature death. He lined up DeHaven and took his identity in life. He lined up, and Big L took his identity in life. He lined up, and Dame Dash took his love and his life identity. Sean Carter, you're a piece of... I'm saying, it wasn't bad enough to take Pimp. All you want to do is go down there and take all the balls out of every legitimate gangster in Houston. Why the bikers, man, did that house burn up? Who the biker goes to their childhood house for a visit and the wah goes up in flames? That was very weird. The next day within the week, and no, the next day. The next day, and still no real investigation on how the house just went up in flames. Man, I guess they paid y'all off. In early December 2007, Pimpy was staying at the Mandarin Hotel in West Hollywood. He was working on new music and getting ready for a show with Too Short. And everything seemed normal until the morning of December 4th, which also happened to be Jay-Z's birthday. Pimp was supposed to fly home that day, but when his wife Chinara and cousin Ed didn't hear from him at the airport, they knew something was wrong. When Chinara called the hotel, the staff went to check his room and found Pimpy unresponsive. He was pronounced dead shortly after. He was just 33. The coroner declared it unintentional, and they said Pimpy died from a mix of lean addiction and sleep apnea. But here's where it gets strange. DJ Paul of 36 Mafia said he got a call from Pimpy's manager, Rick Martin, who'd seen the body firsthand. And according to Rick, the scene didn't look natural. He said it looked like the room had been shot up with blood splattered everywhere. Martin stated he was laying down like he was praying, but there was blood around, like he was shot. They thought that he was shot in the head, but they didn't know what the hell happened because there was blood everywhere. They thought he was shot. He was knelt down like he was praying, and the candles were all the way burnt down. So, they knew he'd probably been dead for a day or so because he always lit those candles to sleep. He lit those big, tall candles, and they had been burnt down. So he probably was dead for a while. And it doesn't stop there. Insiders say Pimpy's mother, Westlyn Mama West Monroe, was convinced he was poisoned. Journalist Julia Beverly, who wrote Pimp C's biography, Sweet Jones, Pimp C's Trill Life Story, revealed that his mom never accepted the official story, and she believes her son was poisoned by someone who was in the hotel room with him that night. Well, according to his mother, he was murdered. She essentially lays out the rationale behind her beliefs. I couldn't really because there are some circumstantial evidence that could lead you to believe such. I had some other individuals look over the autopsy report and other physical evidence, but they weren't really able to reach a firm conclusion on whether there was any foul play or anything like that. However, it is completely untrue that he died from a codeine overdose, as many people have heard. Actually, the coroner stated that he did not overdose on the day he passed, or the day the test results and other information were made public. After which there were numerous headlines claiming that he had overdosed. Therefore, the media's creation of the tale was just careless. However, the official narrative was that he had sleep apnea is a disorder that can make it difficult for you to essentially stop breathing while you're asleep. The narrative also said that he took some codeine, which stopped his body from waking up as it usually would. Though there are several other hypotheses that I sort of examine in the book, it is possible that it may have happened that way. Well, his mom feels he was poisoned, and there was someone with him when he went who was a really shady, unusual character. So there was a person of interest, according to his mother, that she suspected had something to do with his demise. So I wasn't able to actually conclusively come to a conclusion, but I've laid out all the data and folks can kind of decide for themselves. And you now coming back to that final chat between Pimp C and Bun B. The fact that Pimp C told Bun B to watch his back speaks volumes. He certainly felt the pressure from people in the industry who were threatening him. And Pimp C knows how the game worked and who truly runs the whole thing behind the scenes. It wasn't paranoia. It was sincere. Worry from what he could see and hear. As usual, share your thoughts on the hypothesis that Pimp C was aware that someone was attempting to remove him. Do you believe that the official account of how he passed away in that hotel room is incomplete? I'll see you in the future post. Please leave your thoughts below. Video.